time saved is a very helpful ROI. You know, you might say, hey, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna collect 5 stories, and then we're gonna make it into 5 videos. Or you can work on this for the next 6 months, you and your team, and it's gonna take you 250 hours. Or I can do it in 10 for $10,000.
Most people don't know how to tell stories well. And you just give them this little bit to get the story started, and they're able to use that. And then, man, the benefit of a Mad Lib style or these prompts for people in that room to hear that person sharing from their heart with a little bit of, here's some guardrails to help you. It just seems like it seems too simple, but so powerful.
I feel like people who choose not to tell their story are choosing to leave out someone else's survival guide. You know, they're like, oh, I'm gonna keep that to myself. But really, you're literally leaving a map off the table.
On episode 424 of the podcast, we are talking about why making people feel something is more powerful than facts and data. You say data or data? We also talk about how to use Mad Lib style prompts to help people tell better stories, and why authentic behind the scenes content often outperforms polished videos and maybe intros to podcasts. All that and so much more in today's episode. What's up, my friend? Hey, welcome to another episode of the show. I'm your host, Ryan Coral from Studio Sherpas and the Grow Your Video Business podcast. And you're welcome. Hey, have you ever wondered why your beautifully produced videos aren't getting the engagement that you hoped for or that your clients hope for? Today's conversation with storytelling consultant Katie Quesada might change everything you thought about creating content. She shares with me and us why these raw, messy moments might be more valuable than our perfectly polished pieces, and how to help people tell stories that actually move other people to action. So if you want to create content that connects with people on a deeper level, you're not going to want to miss this episode. I'm so happy that you're here. And if this is your first time, welcome. I'm happy to have you. Seriously, the fact that you are spending time listening, trust me, we'll get into the episode here shortly, very shortly. But before we do that, I have something that you're not going to want to miss. If you've been hanging out for a long time or you are kind of brand new, I share lots of tidbits, and there are all sorts of behind the scenes things happening in the world of Studio Sherpas, and new stuff is coming up that I'm very, very excited about. And the best way to be informed about that stuff is through our emails. The emails that I write to you, the emails that I craft in hopes that you read them and take action on them. I recap these podcasts and kind of lay out, here's an action plan on, things to consider doing. We have things like our mastermind and the 10X filmmaker community and the Onward Summit, our in-person event for filmmakers. All of these things, I touch on some of them here on the show, but all the nitty-gritty details, if you're an action taker, if you're interested in knowing what are some other ways that I can grow or scale my video business, you need to be on our email list. And in order to get you onto our email list, I try to lure you in with a free workshop or a free download. And right now, I'm gonna tell you about our 10X Filmmaker workshop. We have a whole community called 10X Filmmaker. It includes monthly coaching calls, Q&A, masterclasses, lots and lots of courses and content and masterclasses and all of the things. But to give you a taste of what that community is like, I have a free masterclass that I want to invite you to. And once you get into that masterclass, then you will get our emails. So if you're not getting our emails, or maybe you signed up to something a long time ago and you're not getting emails that were probably marked as spam or promotion or something like that. So find any emails from Ryan@studiosherpas.com and don't mark them as spam, please. Just kidding. You can, that's fine. But you might miss out on some of the fun things that we're doing here that I'm trying to design to help you. So there's that. If you are interested in the 10X Filmmaker workshop, you can access it for free by going to studiosherpas.com/10X Filmmaker. It's the number 10, the letter X, Filmmaker, the word, studiosherpas.com/10X Filmmaker, and you can get access to that there. That is my gift to you. You know, I've been doing this work for 20 years. And when I say this work, I have a production team in Metro Detroit, Michigan. We have a studio. We're working with all sorts of clients, trying to tell their story, trying to get their message out to the world, create content that helps position them so that they can attract their ideal clients and do the kind of work that brings them life and excitement and money and all of those things. So the 10X Filmmaker community, the workshop that I produce, it's really intended to give you some of the best things that I've learned, mistakes I've made, things that I've figured out over 20 years of investing tens of thousands of dollars in workshops and training and coaching and masterminds and just all the things that I've invested in, books, Audible books, lots and lots and lots of Audible books. But I try to distill that into a workshop so that you can say like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about, or nope, not helpful at all. And that's fine too. So anyway, grab that workshop if you haven't already, studiosherpas.com/10X Filmmaker, and you get on our list and know all the things. Okay, that's enough. I'm very excited about this episode. There's lots of nuggets in here. You're gonna be glad that you came, especially if you're doing anything like brand films or you're doing interviews. It's real good. So that's all. Let's get into the episode, and here we go.
What is up, friends? Hey, welcome to another episode of the show. My guest today is Katie Quesada, who is a storytelling consultant, and she is founder, president, all the things at Quesada Consulting. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. I'm super glad that you're here. I am impressed and happy to hear about all of our mutual connections with Graham Cochran, and you're in the world of John Maxwell and just all of the things. So the work that you do is important. I'm a little bit passionate about it. Yeah. My first brand, our tagline was "Your story, beautifully told."
Oh, that's good.
And for me, like, I got into video because I just had this desire to tell stories, and I knew that people's stories are the most powerful thing when it comes to communication. So, we could probably just talk about our passion for storytelling, and that'll be a fun episode. But I want to hear more about what the trigger, what was the life event for you where you realized that this was something that you wanted to make money doing.
Yeah. 6-ish years ago now, my husband and I were, I was working at a nonprofit. We were living in the LA area, actually very close to where the fires are now, which is so sad. We know a lot of people who are having a really awful year. We were living in that area with our 2-year-old daughter, and I was working actually at a nonprofit. And at the time, I would sit across from someone as a tiny part of my job. I would sit across from someone and they would tell me their life story, which on average takes people about 60 minutes to 3 hours. You know, when you're like, what's your life story? And then I would help them say it in 6 minutes or less from a stage. So I did that over and over and over and over again. I'd hear these very long stories, and I'd help people make them very, very, very short. And I loved it. I could listen to people tell me their story all day long. I mean, people are wildly interesting, especially in Los Angeles. You know, I'm like sitting across from, a 70-year-old Black woman who changed the face of the city of Altadena, and then sitting across from someone who immigrated yesterday, and then like a teeny bopper white kid. It's just like the most amazing group of people. So I would listen to stories all day long and then help them say it shorter and more effectively. But then things went south at that job, and I was like, oh no, we have to quit. My husband and I had been saving for a house for years. We were like, what are we going to do with our lives? We had our 2-year-old daughter, but had also been struggling with infertility for a year. And everything was just hard. Like, all the doors were closed. It was like the whole world was saying, whatever you're going to try, it's not going to work. That's how it was feeling. And we had simultaneously bought a junky RV with a group of friends and renovated it and been on some trips. And my husband came back from one of them and said, do you think we could live in an RV? And I was like, that's what I said. Like, that's all. I made like a breath sound, and he was like, okay. And then I started to follow a bunch of families that live in RVs. And then one wild thing led to another. And I knew I had to quit my job. we couldn't afford to live in LA on one income at the time and still save for a house. And so we bought a 180 square foot, beautifully renovated travel trailer from a random person on Instagram, sold everything we owned, and moved in. And I launched a storytelling consulting business. And now here we are 6 years later. We have 2 daughters. We live in a totally normal house that is 4 times bigger than that one. Okay, so almost 900 square feet, a mansion, some might say. And it worked. So now I get to work with great brands like Zillow and Nike and United Healthcare ongoing, CrowdStrike ongoing, some really, really great organizations to help them tell more concise and compelling narratives. It started with coaching, then moved to consulting, then moved to corporate workshops and keynote speaking. And now I have a couple different workshop models and consulting models that I do with teams. I honestly just help them say less things and better. That's it.
You're like, that's bad, that's bad, that's good, that's
Yep.
bad, that's bad, that's good.
Yep.
When you were at the nonprofit, were you helping people? Was the point to get these 6-minute stories so that they could share their story to get people to buy into whatever, donate, volunteer,
Yep.
et cetera?
All of the above.
Yeah. Which, the funny thing about that work that you're doing, that's the work that we do, right?
Yeah,
We sit down
yeah,
with
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
for an hour. We interview them. They tell us their
Yes.
story.
Yes.
We have plenty of nonprofits and organizations that hire us because they have a gala at the end of the year and they're trying to raise money and they're feeding people wine and all of the things that they need. And then they see this beautiful story with some emotive music behind it.
Yeah.
And the call to action is like, hey, partner with us. Take out your checkbooks right now and write us a check, give us money. So that's, I love the synergy of what we're doing. What for you has been a mark of meaning or success where you just said, man, this was, whether it was a corporate client or, one of these other stories where you just said like, I actually made a difference here?
I've had a handful of individual clients who have the most amazing story I've ever heard in my life, and I'm listening to them. And I think one of the most beautiful parts of story work, and I'm sure you've experienced this many times, is that the first time you tell someone's story back to them and they hear it, and they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, no, you told me that. That happened to you. I think those they just had, all of us are living inside of our own narrative. So we have no concept of what our character energy is, what's happened to us. We're living it, in real time. So I think that that's the moments where I they say like, to me, that's so beautiful. And I'm like, no, that's your life. You did that, or helping people realize they are overcomers or they are resilient or they have been so strong or brave or, they have created something that they couldn't believe they could. All of us are so self-critical, caught up in our own narratives. We don't have very much reflective time. We don't actually feel conclusive about what we've experienced. All these really important things that are valuable to our own human experience. So I think all of those moments for me have been super valuable. And then, when you get into the business side of it, it was really healing for me to leave nonprofit and go in business because I found out that if you just figure out how to get results, you can make more money. And like in the nonprofit space, you just keep working harder and you just really never make more money. So for me, that was like a hard thing for our family. And, I worked way too much. It wasn't a healthy situation for me. But now I'm like, oh, wait, all I got to do is figure out how to have more results for people and like create ROI in their sphere. And there's financial gain to that as well. So I think that kind of both of those sides of that, I took so much of the goodness from the nonprofit world, but the business world has some perks too.
Yeah. I would say one of the most challenging parts, as I'm coaching all these filmmakers and production owners, one of the hardest things to do is to talk about ROI. If you're a marketing team and you're looking for a video, why should we hire you? And it's like, I would love to say like, well, as a result of hiring us, 90% of companies see a 70% growth in their sales or whatever the case may be. How are you measuring that? Like what kind of tips or techniques could you give to us filmmakers to start like thinking like that? We would love to, we're so, what I found is that people that are like me, they want to be, they're just the best kind of people. So they don't want to sell something that they don't, if they can't say, well, I think our video is helpful. But to say that it helped raise, $2 million, I just feel icky about that. And I've tried to say, like, listen, if your video was part of a campaign that raised $2 million, you can say our video helped raise $2 million, right? That's one thing. But in your practice, as you're realizing, man, if I can help people get more ROI, like that makes me more valuable. What are some of those things that might translate to people like us?
Yeah. I mean, my initial reaction is that in all of my storytelling 1.0 workshops, I work with teams to say, if you want to make someone do something, you have to make them feel something.
Yeah.
So that's the world we're living in now. Period. Like, people are not doing something because they see a fact. They're not. Like,
Right.
We are overwhelmed with noise, facts, ideas, theories, data. We're all drowning in it.
Yeah.
But if you want someone to do something, you have to make them feel something. And the easiest way to make someone feel something is through a story. So
Yeah.
I doubt you're going to write a ballet. I don't think you're going to, telling a company, like, I don't think you're going to go create an art. You might. Like, there's some very specific companies, but for the most part, what you need is good storytelling so that people feel something and want to act. And so I think the ROI in there might be something like, yeah, there's click-through rates or there's views, et cetera. But I think transformation, action, connection, community, like, I think all of those things, in some ways, there are data points there. And then in other ways, it is time saved is a very helpful ROI. Because for them, you might say, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to collect 5 stories, and then we're going to make it into 5 videos. Or you can work on this for the next 6 months, you and your team, and it's going to take you 250 hours. Or I can do it in 10 for $10,000, like whatever that exchange is. I think time saved in storytelling, especially if you're a videographer or a story, that's what the company ROI is typically for me, is I'm like, oh, like half your meetings, we don't need to do them. Your slide decks, half the words off. We're like, everyone's just subconsciously justifying their behavior. Like, we don't need to do it. It's going to be time saved is one of the big ROIs. And then just learning how to identify what's important in what you're clarifying in your messaging. So I think that's probably people need to feel something to act, and then you will save time by working with a good filmmaker. You will be able to have content for a year. You will have a marketing plan for, the micro clips, all of those things. I think there is a lot of ROI in there as well. Even if you're right, video companies, they're like, we guarantee virality. I want to fall out of my chair. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. It isn't helpful for you to pretend that you do because other people think you can. It's just the wild, wild west. You just throw some confetti out into the universe and hope for the best. But I think that figuring out some specific ROIs for the community itself is helpful.
Yeah. That's really good. I have learned that talking about, if we can save you time, and that's huge. And, one of just this instance sticks out to me when clients will come to us and say, well, we need to hire more staff. Like, that's one of our big initiatives this year. And when we do, we've got to train this many, we'll probably interview this many. And we start doing math with them. I don't do public math, by the way.
Yeah.
But we start doing math to figure out, okay, roughly how many people is that? How much time is each interview?
Yes.
How much onboarding is there? Can any of that be done via video?
Cool.
Obviously, some should be done in person. But, okay, so now it looks like if we were to do this little video package, we could save. I remember we did it for this one recruiting firm, and it was like, they're paying this one employee $150,000 a year, and there was such a massive part of that person's job that not even by intentionality were they designed to be doing all of this work for recruiting, but they were spending a bulk of their time and their salary was going toward this. And this company was like, oh my gosh, yes, if we had more onboarding videos and we had a better process for getting like our ideal clients up front.
Yes.
So telling some stories that are in alignment with our values and not sugarcoating anything, but just trying to be who we are. That has been super duper helpful.
Yes. And I actually work ongoing with a company that I love out here in California. And one of the things we did for them is right after someone applies for their job, so they're constantly recruiting as well, literally always hiring. When someone applies for their job or when a family inquires about their services, either one, we text them, thank you for applying, we're so glad. Check out this 1-minute video of who we are and what we're about. And in the text embedded is a 1-minute commercial for the organization. And it's like, here's the story, here's what we do, here's why it matters. And that commercial video has higher views than anything we've published because people click on it. They do, and then you have more of a memory, that tiny little thing to text videos. phones are so noisy. We know that texts are really high ROI, like having the capacity to just text a YouTube link to say, hey, take a minute and learn a little more about us before you enter our call or finish the email. And then they can really get that sense, and you get to tell a story right away without even having getting on a call, right? So the ROI of that for that organization, that 1 minute clip I can't even imagine how many more people finish the interview application process, actually call back. I mean, there's so much ROI built in there.
Yeah, I love that. If I was to present to you, hey, here's a company that could use your service, but I'm not going to tell you anything about the company, and I'm not going to tell you anything about their goals. And it's up to you to just say like, okay, like this is the strategy I would use, or this is what I would propose to them. If I know nothing about them, this will probably work. What would you do or suggest?
I don't know if I'd do that.
I'm like putting you on a spot. I'm like, is there something that,
No, the reason that I say that is because my entire inquiry process is like, what are your communication issues? Who is saying what? What are the stories you're telling? Let me look at your website. So I have so many questions before I can land on a story that I think makes sense. And that I think is beneficial to see through those hurdles. So, I mean, my answer would be probably I'd think this is spam and I'm not responding to your email. But then the second thing I would think
I'm spam.
Yes, exactly. But then I'd probably think through. I would probably take their high-level leaders and lead them through a 4-part storytelling and communication workshop. No matter who it is, that has proven. I have done that workshop for doctors, exclusively heads of finance, exclusively data scientists, exclusively rocket scientists. And it has been well received. So I think without any information, I would probably say hop into storytelling 1.0 and go from there.
I knew it. See, I knew you had something. And what are they walking away with? Like just how to, is that storytelling really going to be like, oh, you could apply this to your sales. This could be applied to your marketing, recruiting, all of that stuff?
It's the basics of a good story, how to do it, why it works, and then what communication storytelling to avoid, negative stories, derogatory stories, gossip, some storytelling faux pas that really take you out of leadership fast. And then it's how to find, mine, and remind people of your good stories. So find them, mine for them, remind people of them. That's a piece of the puzzle.
That's really good. Find, mine, remind.
Mm-hmm.
Wish I came up with that.
Sorry.
Sorry. That's good. I just had a discovery call this week with a nonprofit that's based in Detroit. They are a charter school, and there's not very many nonprofit charter schools, at least according to this woman. And I went to their website, no stories. I think all of the photography was stock. And, it's just like, I just feel sad going to their website because I'm like, this is not, according to, what she was telling me about their work and stuff. It's like, this is meaningful. And you guys need stories. In an instance like that, where they're trying to recruit, actually twofold, they don't totally need to recruit new students. They really need more staff, and they need staff that are young, vibrant, want to experiment, and just bring that energy to what they're doing. So in that case, I won't give you much more, but what would you do with that?
I would probably suggest creating an archetype of their dream staff member, finding it on site, and then having that person say their before and after journey. So I used to work at schools and I think that just creating that narrative of, in my last job, all the things that current teachers can align with, like I was stuck in red tape, I was drowning in who I was. So maybe something that would be my initial gut reaction. But I think also, like, now that what we can do with video, there's day in the life, just typical stories. There's just so much that we can do with how we tell stories in a short form fashion. But that would be my 2 cents in 2 seconds.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, transformation, before and after, those are some of my favorite. And I always tell people too, like when we are encouraging people to get testimonials or if they're hiring us, we're always like, listen, like at the very core, if we just had, what's your story before this organization, this business, whatever, and then what's your story after? What is life like now? It's not perfect, right?
Yeah.
But hopefully it's better and it's different. And like, what was that change and how is it impacting you today? Like, that's just like, there's just so much goodness in that because we can see ourselves in those stories.
Yeah. Speaking to that a little bit, one of the tools that I use that I think videographers in general can, because I work with a handful of videographers and I have for years. I mean, some of my best guy friends are freelance videographers, like just lifelong friends, like brothers to me. But one of the things that all of my workshops end with is their 1-minute story. And I kind of utilize the idea of Mad Libs. Do you remember Mad Libs? Were you like,
yeah.
Okay, great. Like noun, verb, like you fill in the blanks.
Let me just say, I'll just interrupt you real quick here. I think it was 4th grade when I did my first Mad Libs. I thought it was the funniest and the coolest thing that
it's still
ever
funny.
existed, right next to like Choose Your Own Adventure stories.
Yeah.
Continue.
It's still funny. My kids do them. But basically, we never want to script someone's story, but we obviously want to successfully prompt them. And so what I do tend to do is before my time at, I thought, because of my time at, I've realized we are changing because a big issue we are facing is we will overcome that issue by, I love that my role in this is, and I just, and then people can finish sentences and now they have this incredible story that's still their own voice, their own tone, their own narrative, as opposed to just free flowing.
In that regard, are you talking about like you do that to set them up to be on video, or is that more something that would be print or both, either or?
Oh, they literally just stand up in the room and tell their personal story, like in a workshop.
Yeah.
So no, it's not even captured. They're all just like hearing from their team members and like, wow, John loves working here. Like it's in the moment. Team building is the ROI of that story. Yeah. But would that be good for their hiring? Yes. Like, for them to video, like, yes, there would be wins there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. My friend, Mark Ostash, he's an author and a speaker. And one of his books is If You Really Knew Me. And he does this, he goes to these big corporate events and he'll have these teams, these huge teams, he'll have them do this exercise. And there's like mild, medium, and spicy. And so mild is, you get up in front of people and you say, if you really knew me, you'd know that I collected tons of baseball cards when I was a kid. And then you share a couple at that level and then you go one level deeper, so we're getting a medium. If you really knew me, you'd know that my parents got divorced when I was 11 and it really had an impact on my life. And then you get to the spicy and the tears and all of that stuff. And so it is such a powerful experience because again, like you're creating these prompts or these opportunities for people to fill in the blank because most people don't know how to tell stories well.
Right.
And you just give them this little bit to get the story started and they're able to use that. And then the benefit of a Mad Lib style or these prompts for people in that room to hear that person sharing from their heart with a little bit of, here's some guardrails to help you. It just seems like it seems too simple, but so powerful, and you're witness to that, right?
Yeah, right. And I think
that's all. Bye.
Yeah, that's it.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you. No, and we cannot underestimate how difficult it is for people to tell their story. So, you ask a random Joe, who's lived 45 years or 65 years, like, hey, tell me about this thing. They're like, what do you want to know? Is that a camera? What are you doing? Why am I here? And then they tell you they then proceed to tell you the craziest thing you've ever heard in your life. You're like, are you kidding me? And they're like, what's the big deal? And you're like, oh my gosh, so it's just incredibly difficult for people. So any kind of boundaries, guardrails, prompts, it makes it so much more helpful and you get the outcome you want.
Mm-hmm. Is there another opportunity that you've seen that filmmakers should be taking advantage of in this landscape of stories, and especially most of us are working with corporations, so there's obvious like testimonials, whether that's people that work there or people who have used the product or service. There's the story, whether it's the founder or the people that work there. It's like, why do they care? That kind of stuff. Anything else stand out that, man, if you're a filmmaker, you should totally be pitching these kinds of videos or just making this because this would be really helpful and it'll make other companies want to hire you for that thing? My
knee-jerk reaction is what I'm currently drawn to, which is I love a raw, behind the scenes, feels rough, even though it's totally curated. I think of Disney's recent commercials in the theater that are for Disneyland, and it's all of the audio in that commercial is far away from the cameraman. It's like a couple across the park. Like, did you eat lunch? I don't think you had lunch. And it's like this. Another example of this is the podcast Song Exploder. Have you ever heard of that? It's a great podcast. Oh my gosh.
No.
But it's this brilliant guy who interviews famous artists, and he gets the behind the scenes of the songs you love. How were they written? Where were they written?
Yeah.
And the episode that I just listened to that I thought like, oh, this is the storytelling we want. Is with Gracie Abrams for her very famous song, I Love You, I'm Sorry. But anyways, the episode is her playing on the episode the voice memos of her and her friend back and forth of the lyrics she was discovering in real time. So like he screenshots the text, he plays the voice memos. And I say that to say, I think we're a little bit like curated is a little bleh. We're kind of, these perfect videos aren't as... I think we just need a little bit of more rough around the edges, raw, behind the scenes, background, audio from a distance, blooper heavy. I think rougher storytelling is helpful in our AI curated world. So that's my instant reaction is like, how do you make this thing kind of random, a little chaotic, and has some audio visual cues from your home real life that might like bring you into the story?
Mm-hmm. I think that's been one of my biggest frustrations over the last 5 years or so. Having been doing this work for 20 years, when we started, nobody had video. People had video cameras, some at home or whatever,
right.
But like for the most part, professional stuff, like people just didn't own it. And so we were the only ones that could make stuff look good.
Right.
And then everybody else in the world starts making stuff that looks kind of good and they're just using their phone.
Right.
And so it's like, that desire for something that feels a little bit more handheld, a little bit more organic, a little bit more real, especially, with the introduction of AI and
right.
All of our content today. It's like we're going to be longing more and more for at least, if nothing else, the feeling that this is probably, hopefully real, that of what I'm watching. But one of my biggest frustrations has been, we have a client who spends tens of thousands of dollars on a video, and we post the video and it's like, okay, 200 views. Mm-hmm. It's like, nah. But then we post a photo of us behind the scenes, or like a short video clip of us shot on somebody's camera. And it's like, thousands of views and tons of engagement. It's like, you guys, you're killing me. Like, we spent all this time and energy creating this. This is sweet. But what people are so interested in is this real raw kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's, I think, asking ourselves every time we go to capture a story, like, what's the story behind the story? What's the story behind the scenes of the story? What's a story that could create curiosity out of this story? Like, what's a random, it's so true. Like, I've seen my friends in marketing and my friends in video, they do like a whole origin founder story for this fan company. And they make this whole 4-minute video that's way too long. And, no one's going to watch to the end of 6 minutes of a founder story. And then they end up filming, how the fan is made. And that thing, is like, takes off and is like, that got way more business. But the founder story has a time and place on the website for someone who wants to know them, But there's, I totally agree. It's a wild, wild west out there. And making good content is unique.
It's just so, like, if I had the option, you hop on a Delta flight and you get to see the video from the CEO. And I've seen, I don't know how many iterations. I remember the former CEO, his videos. And it would be so much more engaging if it was like, okay, cut. All right, how did you feel that went? I thought that was pretty good. Hey, Bob, you did a great job over there. And just to see the human side, not the prompter side where everything looks amazing, to build or to have a brand that feels real and relatable.
Yeah.
Man, there's just so much value in that. And we're not doing work for Delta, and but in their marketing, people would probably say like, "Wow, it's not, this is not the time and place for this, and our CEO is too important." But maybe we can find somebody else on our team that we could do something like that for some purpose. But for the companies that do understand it and get it, from a consumer standpoint, there's nothing I like more than feeling connected to a brand.
Right.
And I can't connect to, that high level of production, but if it feels real, like I will like you a little bit more.
Right.
And maybe a lot more depending on what kind of person you are or at least what you seem like.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree.
Agree to disagree. Just kidding. One of the things that I just posted on LinkedIn earlier this week, we are hiring an intern that person's sole responsibility will be to capture behind the scenes of our team at work, and we'll go on set and capture our clients, because I'm very interested to offer that as a service to clients. Like, hey, we're going to film, we're going to bring our amazing cameras and lights and all that stuff, and it'll look amazing. But then here's this other deliverable that we can give you is like the making of. So lots of opportunity for social. We could even like somehow infuse this into the polished video. But whenever you're watching a video and they cut to the production angle, we call it, where you can see the lights and the camera, that feels, there is a feeling of like, oh, okay. Like they know that we know that this is, set up. And so we're all on the same page here. They're not trying to trick us or anything like that. There's just something psychologically there that makes us feel better. So we're embracing this idea of, we think clients are going to say, yeah, we actually will pay you to take some photos and some behind the scenes, even though they might have people doing that, for us to be able to offer that as a service, because we're just seeing how important and valuable that is.
Yeah, exactly. And mic up random people, capturing all of that, the riffraff is what we want to watch. So yeah, behind the scenes, I think is helpful.
What's like a kind of, if you have one more suggestion for people, for filmmakers in particular, or just people in general that need to be telling their story, need to be capturing it, need to be thinking through it with a different lens, what's a good next action step for them? For us, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, the usual process in my world is someone realizing they have a story worth telling, which is the initial first hurdle. People are like, do I? I don't. And most people can talk themselves out of that. But the truth is that like storytelling, the more people we have telling their unique stories, the better. So if you have like one perfectly polished 5-star Amazon review, you don't love the product. You love the product when there's 5,000 and you hear the weird ins and outs. So we just need all, like a product review, I need you to tell your story. Just say like, hey, here's my review on marriage. Like, here's my review on parenting. Because we need a large diversity of stories. We literally do need it as people. There's no way for you to know who you're going to help and serve where. I feel like people who choose not to tell their story are choosing to leave out someone else's survival guide. They're like, oh, I'm going to keep that to myself. But really, you're literally leaving a map off the table. So I feel very passionately about people sharing their stories and kind of working up the courage to do that. And then I'd say the greatest stories are told around dinner tables. So start there. Start to tell stories with your immediate circles, because that's where actual influence and transformation happens. We know that. And then from there, figure out a platform and just start sharing it. There is no perfect way to do this, as as a content creator. Like, the only next right thing to do is to do the next thing. I think kind of starting to tell it is an important piece of the puzzle.
Bam. Wow. Katie, I mean, the beginning was strong, the middle was strong, and then the end, it's just like, can you drop that mic? Are you allowed? Is that?
No, my husband set it up. It's very tight on here. I cannot.
Okay. Yeah. We'll just do like the virtual drop of the mic, and then just pretend like you're walking away. Yeah, drop the pen. This was amazing. Katie, what's the best way if people want to follow you, if they want to connect with you, how can they do that? What are some different ways?
Yeah, I am most often on Instagram, which is at Katie Quesada. Quesada is Quesada. Katie is classic Katie, Katie. And I do just communication tips, like how to cut someone off, how to walk away, how to tell a shorter story, what to say at a party. So I do that on there. And then I have a course called Story School, which is katiequesada.com/story school. And that is access for anyone. You can hop in. It's all the videos are 10 minutes or less. I like to keep it short. It's how to find your story, what your core stories are, what are your story values, what platform should you use, how to use AI to support you in short storytelling. It's the whole kit and caboodle, Story School. And that's been a great thing for clients and people alike. And then I lead corporate trainings, workshops, and keynotes. So if you work at a random office and you're like, you know what, I think we could be better communicators, you can go to katiequesada.com and fill out my contact form. And I would love to hear from you.
That is amazing. I love that. Reach out to Katie. I'm hopping off here, and then I'm going to hop on and check out your course. There's always room to grow as storytellers. Seriously, thank you so much for being generous with your time. Love the talent that you have and the gift that you have, encouraging people to tell their stories. I agree. So keep doing what you're doing. And again, super, super appreciative of your time today.
Cool. Agree to disagree. Just kidding.
Friend, thank you so much for hanging out with me on this episode. Really grateful. If you are watching this on YouTube or somewhere else and you have a takeaway, something that you want to share, leave a comment. Would love to see those. I will engage with you. And if you're a little shy on the socials, then feel free to just shoot me an email and let me know. I just got an awesome email this morning from episode, I think it's 270, where I talk about scarcity and abundance mindset. If you haven't listened to this episode, I think this is the one that we've gotten the most compliments on, or feedback on. I'm not looking for compliments, but for people to hear something and say like, oh my gosh, this changed my perspective. So that's a good one, 270. You can go search that up or just type in studiosherpas.com/270 and you'll get there. So anyway, if there's something that I can help you with, you can email me. If there's something that you just want to share, feel free to email me. My best email is ryan@studiosherpas.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with me. I am for you. I'm hoping for the best year for you and your business and growth and connecting with others and bringing value and trying to figure out how to serve other people. Because when we do that, I think our businesses thrive and we grow. We grow as people, we grow as business owners, we grow as creatives. So I hope you find the time to be able to work on your business and not just in your business. There's a difference. Hopefully, if you hang out here for a little bit longer, you'll understand the difference and you'll start carving out that time to work on your business. Otherwise, we become slaves to this, and none of us want to do that or be that. So that's all. Have an amazing rest of your week. Make it great, and I'll talk to you real soon. See ya.